Welcome back to another episode of The Hardcore Casual with your boy, Base the Kid. As always, please like, subscribe and share it with a friend, a colleague, family member, an enemy, an associate, anyone in between. I appreciate it all. Now, a little quick one, because a few things have come up over the last couple of days, which I thought was interesting on my part. I don't necessarily cover everything, but on this particular topic, I said, all right, let me break this one down from my perspective. So, without further ado, here it is. Okay, so I think this came out on Tuesday, but as I was away for work on yesterday, I was actually unable to really sort of delve into this one and try and break it down. But it turns out that Alex Krasiuk, who is the promoter of Alexander Usyk, has come out and basically said that he offered Tyson Fury's team a 60-40 to the winner deal, whereby whoever lost would take 40%, whoever won would take 60%, and that was swiftly rejected. We still don't have an idea of what split Tyson Fury wants for this particular fight, but what Alex Krasiuk made specific highlight to mention was that Usyk's team have not given a monetary value. They don't care how much money the fight generates. They care about the split of the fight. Now, he was very careful to actually say, if the fight does great and we make a lot of money, everyone's happy. If the fight doesn't do too well, oh well, it is what it is. But we do not care about the monetary value. However, it seems like the other team does. And if that's the case, you can't then get to a fair split between the two when one person is looking at how much money they get for the fight and the other team and the other person is looking at what split they get from the pot. So this kind of coincides with what Frank Warren said on TalkSport roughly, when he basically said that I can't force Usyk to fight, I can't force Fury to fight. Like, we have a pot of money and they have to both agree and accept what's in the pot. Now, according to all reports, Usyk's team apparently had a deal signed from January with the Saudis and had that deal basically agreed with the Saudis from last year, July, before the Anthony Joshua rematch fight. And obviously it was only Fury's team that then didn't have an issue with that. Now, again, in this Alexander Krasiuk interview that I saw earlier on today, he basically said that from what he's heard, there's been other issues at play with this fight. Like, they just sort of the Saudis just kind of bailed out at the last minute. Ramadan taking place towards the back end of April, and not being able to get the stadium up in time. And he said, I don't know if I believe those issues based on the magnitude of this fight. Essentially, what he said there was, that's a bunch of bullshit, because we've dealt with them before and we know firsthand that when they want something and when there is a big marketing event to be had, things get done. There's absolutely no way that a stadium would not have been able to be erected in time for this event based on them, even if it was to do with Ramadan or other situations, because realistically all they would do is just change the clocks to the point that everyone would be working throughout the nights and they would be resting during the days. That's pretty much, essentially, that's what he's kind of saying. They will find a way to make it work because that's what they always do. So what's my take on this whole scenario? At this point, it sounds like he just kind of, as they say, beating a dead horse, kicking a man while he's down, proverbially, even though that's not actually the case. But ultimately, again, we've seen there seems to only be one party here that is causing issue or causing the problems in the negotiations, And from all the information, even the information that Frank Warren is giving, bearing in mind he's trying very hard not to give too much, but it's ultimately Tyson Fury's team, or Tyson Fury himself, whomever, is being very difficult in these negotiations. For whatever reason, they do not want this fight. Maybe that's the case, they don't want this fight right now, in terms of the timing for them doesn't necessarily work in this particular instance and moment. Or it could be a case that they just don't want the fight, period, because this person is just a bad style matchup. So even if they win, they may not look good winning. It may shatter a perception that they have. It may shatter a viewpoint of him when he says that he's the greatest ever. He could have hung in any era, and he thinks he would have beat anyone in any era. He needs to maintain a certain look of his style to be able to give a perception like that to the public. And knowing that someone like Usyk, who is incredibly talented, incredibly skilled, nimble, he can hit, and can make you look cumbersome and clumsy, that's probably not what he's after. I've said it for numerous times, I just don't think he wants this fight. And to the point now, even Adam Catterall has said, if this fight does not happen, there's only one person to blame. Now that's Adam Catterall, who's one of the biggest Fury fanboys over here. And Simon Jordan, even though he didn't press and push Frank Warren the way he would normally do other people he has agendas against, even he's basically said, so essentially Fury is pricing himself out of this fight. That's long and short of it. That's kind of what he said also. You then had Eddie Hearn in an interview earlier on today on IFL TV. He kind of got very spicy. There was a lot of F-bombs thrown around with regards to Tyson Fury and the level of contradictions, and the fact that he said, look, at the end of the day, when we dealt with Usyk, we had 2 fights back to back, no problem, no issues at all. We've delivered 3 fights in the United Arab Emirates, and we've not had any issues with it. One was there was the Andy Ruiz Jr. rematch, there was the Alexander Usyk rematch, and then there was the Abu Dhabi fight series between Zurdo Ramirez and Dimitri Bivol. 3 events, three non-issues, and he basically said Tyson Fury is asking for money he's not good for. He said he's not the commercial value, he doesn't have the commercial value he thinks he does, and right now he's starting to realize that, or he's learning that the hard way. There was also, I can't remember the name, but I think the guy's name was Dave, so shout out to Dave, who went on to the Jim White and Simon Jordan show, I think it was, and I think, is it Danny Murphy was the other guy who's on there, the ex-footballer, and the guy Dave basically ran down an itemized timeline of everything that Fury has done to hold up this fight and other fights. And basically he even threw out the whole Anthony Joshua negotiations were, they were done in bad faith. They weren't real. They weren't legitimate, because he said the only reason he couldn't fight Anthony Joshua on the 17th of December when he asked for was because he had the fight signed to face Usyk in February. When now we're March, that fight's not signed. So, boom. Yeah, I mean, look, without me really having to go to town on this, you guys have seen enough videos from me, you've seen enough of my takes to understand what I'm saying right here. There was another point, but you know what, I'm actually going to save that one for Monday Night Smoke. So yeah, I'm going to leave this one here, but again, if you haven't watched, I'm going to leave the links to the Alex Krasiuk interview and the Eddie Hearn interview, and if I can find that the Simon Jordan and Jim White segment from Talksport, I'm going to put all of those in the comment section below so you guys can see those. But yeah, give me your view on this. I'm happy to take all of them, whether they're Fury, whether they're Fury favored, Usyk favored, whatever, let me know. So there's been a lot more fallout with the Conor Ben interview from the Piers Morgan show. I've seen Spencer Fearon has been asked about it. Johnny Nelson, Eddie Hearn's obviously been asked to speak about it also. I think Gabriel Montoya's got involved. Shout out to Gabe. Who else? There's probably Adam Cattrall. I know Adam Cattrall had a segment on it on the Fight Disciples podcast. I saw a portion of that a little bit earlier on today. Haven't seen the whole thing, so I don't want to get into it because I don't like to misquote people and misquote what they've said. But it seems to be unanimous that it was not a good idea to do that interview, and trying to appeal to, I guess, the public as a whole without having the necessary evidence that you need to clear yourself was a massive error in judgment. Now, what I've seen several people from Ade, Spencer, G-Man, big up G-Man as well, now I don't know if some of these people have said this because they've seen other people say it and then like, oh, it makes sense, or they literally was just thinking it themselves, but a lot of people have said that they would actually like for him to be interviewed by someone like Simon Jordan, who's gonna get to the bottom of it. He's not gonna give you the softball questions and whatnot. Now, on one hand, I'm not gonna lie, I'd like to see it. Because, I mean, as I said, Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver have been eating off Conor Benn's name for the last 6 months, to a level that I've never seen elsewhere, especially not within the YouTube era. You've never had a story that's lasted 6 months long on the YouTube and this microwave era space that we live in. But they've managed to milk it out week in, week out. Now, partly, I do also have to say Conor has been a contributor to that, because rather than keeping his mouth shut, going away and waiting for things to conclude so that you can then give this evidence you have, like, you're still giving little tidbits here and there, making sure your name stays out there. So you have to take the good with the bad. So, on one hand, I would like to see Simon Jordan have a crack at this. The problem is, well, there's two problems. Number one, I guess, until what's in this document is able to be produced, because that's what everyone's basically talking about and has been talking about for the last month and a half, 2 months. Like, this document is what's necessary, is what's needed. We need to see the contents of it to guarantee proof of innocence or proof of guilt. So you may not still get the answers you want, but you might be able to ask the questions in a way that, pokes even more holes in a story. But the issue with, obviously, again, Simon Jordan doing it, you're still not going to get a conclusive guilty or innocent unless Conor says, you know what, alright, screw this, look, yeah, I did it, this is long, I did it, or, because that's the only way, because all you're going to be able to get is a proof of guilt by an admission at this point. You're not going to be able to get a proof of innocence without seeing that evidence and having that corroborated by other, scientists and lawyers and everyone else involved. So it doesn't really do much to help the case in that scenario. But the other reason why I wouldn't necessarily want to see it is, look, Simon Jordan can say all he wants that he doesn't have an agenda against Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, or whatnot, but we've seen his energy not be the same across the board. Like, we may see him say things, so you might even, okay, so for instance, he's right now saying, like, Tyson is, what is it money or is it legacy? What do you want? Blah blah blah. But he's not hitting Tyson Fury with the question with the same vim that he was talking about Eddie Hearn being a disgrace for the way he's handled this whole situation, or being a coward in the way that he's not wanted to come and speak about these things and blah blah blah. So, and even the way that he asked Frank Warren questions the other day. He asked him questions, so yes, you give him props for that, and he pushed back on a couple of his answers, but there was never the vim that he's wanted to push back or Eddie Hearn, or even the vim that he was willing to push back Robert Smith. So as much as he says, I really like Conor, I don't want Conor to be guilty, it's like, well, it almost, to me, it feels like you do, because I don't think you would necessarily talk about this to the lengths that you have, as consistent as you have, if you actually wanted him to be innocent. You'd say, all right, you know what, until I get a court document come through, I'm done with this topic. I feel like that's what you would kind of want. If you was looking for someone, or you was hoping someone would be innocent, you would keep it to that. All right, you know what, I'm not happy with what I've seen, but I reserve judgment until such and such a point, and then you can make your case either way. But the fact that constantly pointing out what may be irregularities to you, or what may sound implausible, and all these other things, again, without seeing the contents and just going off tidbits here and there, it seems as if ultimately you're expecting the worst, and so that's what you're leading with. That's my opinion on it. So, like I said, I would, from an entertainment standpoint, I'd like to see it, but I just don't think it would actually benefit us at this point. As I said before, I still don't think it's worth really getting into this whole thing up until a point as this document comes out at some point. Now, something I did see from the Fight Disciples, I want to mention it quickly, where Adam Cattrall said, it was Conor Ben in the interview said something along the lines of, the only way it could be contamination is the food. Basically saying, if they was talking of a contamination within his case, that could be the only way it would be able to be in his system. It would be food. It wouldn't be a substance he's injected or a pill he's taken. It would be within food. So then Adam Cattrall basically said that's the reason he believes Conor Ben really doesn't want to give that document to the BBBOC, because of what we know as strict liability, and the fact of you have to be liable for every single thing that's in your system, whether you knowingly took it or ingested it or not. And if it was in your system and you're saying it was a contaminant due to food or whatnot, then the onus is still on you to have that, to basically, that was in your system. The onus is on you to stop anything from ever being able to get into your system, so you would still be banged to rights and still be able to face a ban. And that's the reason why they're trying to circumvent that area, because the WBC doesn't have strict liability. He has a point. I'm not even going to argue. Like, that's a valid point. But again, I feel like even the little clip that he took, I don't feel that clip necessarily, yes, it can lead credence to the argument he's making there, but if you look at that clip is then kind of out of context, because he was being asked a specific question at that time and he was speculating on that specific question. He wasn't saying that I believe this is the case, but if it was a contamination, it was just like Piers Morgan asked him a question, and that was the way he just responded to that particular question itself. Now, unless you're then saying he knew instantly that this is what the issue is, and this is why he's trying to skirt around the issue and go for this strict liability substance and whatnot, maybe that's the way they're gonna go about it. Who knows? But yeah, I've just wanted to talk about the responses. Pretty much every response I've seen, and I haven't watched all of them, they've all pretty much said the same thing I said. Same with the Undefeated podcast, is like, you reckon you've got all this evidence which you can't divulge, but you're still doing everything to try and protest the innocence that you can't prove until this evidence can come out, which you can't speak about. So it's all just like a big circus. It's all a big shit show. It doesn't help anyone at this point in time. So yeah, gonna leave that one there. Thank you very much for watching. Hardcore Casual out.